When is a restoration not a restoration? The purists would say it's when you depart from the original parts and start using materials and technologies from today rather than from the period of the vehicle. That's all right for some, but then there are others who don't see their vehicles as museum pieces, perhaps want to use their cars in a sporting fashion and want to know that the money they've spent on restoration and refurbishment has brought them reliability. It's a dilemma that the HVR team are more than familiar with.
There's two schools. There's one school that want everything completely original as it was when it left the factory. There's the other school that tend to use their cars more in a really sporting fashion. So they want us to build engines that are strong, so that then we replace all the components that are likely to fail. So it's possible to get an original crankshaft that's not cracked and rods that are not cracked and actually build an engine in a standard fashion.
Whether you're renovating a house or restoring a classic car, the thing that craftsmen fear most is the great unknown.
When you start restoring a car, you never know until you pull it apart exactly what condition it is. Some of them it's not too bad, others it's enormous amount of work, so it varies.
So what do you want from your classic? A delicate but original in every way museum piece, or a car you can use as the makers intended? It's an important question for every potential classic car owner to ask before they make a decision on what to buy and sign the cheque to make it happen. It's not so much a question of cost as it is of philosophy. HVR's Paul Chalier can speak to both sides of the argument, but he's got some definite views on what you might expect to find under the bonnet of a pre-Second World War classic.
Well, they're all worn out. If you're 70 years old or older, and generally the sports cars, of course, they've had a very, very hard life. So, and the materials from the 20s and 30s are not as good in terms of quality control. The workmanship was very good, the design was very good, but the materials that were available in those days are not as good as the materials that are available now. So, for instance, aluminium was porous, and over the years it gets full of oil, it cracks, it loses its integrity. Cast iron, of course, corrodes away. And then a lot of the reciprocating components crack and break. So, you're faced with all that.
When you're dealing with cars that are often 70 years or more old, the line between restoration and refurbishment can never be clear-cut. There will inevitably be some original parts that are no longer available, and remanufacturing is the only option if the vehicle is to be resurrected. How much is remanufactured using today's materials and technologies is a matter for discussion between the owner and the restorers, and must take into account the uses to which the vehicle will be put. As an example, Paul walks us through the complete restoration of a classic MG, the K-Type, which the owner wants to use as MG originally intended it should be used.
Well, all the mechanical components are the original components. So new components would be like the wiring loom, batteries, fuel lines, brake lines, and general refurbishing of the old components. With the body, it's a completely new body, wooden frame, aluminium panelling. We use a modern dry cell battery because of its capacity. Also, we've used a modern fuel pump, again for reliability. And there are other things that we fit in. For instance, there's a fuel pressure gauge, because it's essential these days with the modern fuels that we get the mixtures right, because it's a very expensive engine to build and we don't want to have any problems to do with mixture. So a few modern things are actually hidden. A lot of the components have passed their use-by date in a big way. For instance, crankshafts. A lot of the 9 times out of 10, the crankshafts when we crack test them are cracked, so you can't use them. So what we do is we make, in this case, we're making a new crankshaft for the K-type MG. So that's been machined from a solid billet. And in that process, it allows us to use modern bearings. And also we would put new connecting rods with modern bearings in them as well. So essentially then you get a bottom end that's bulletproof. This engine for the K-type is being built basically as a racing engine. So it's got all new components right through it, including a block, and new valves, valve springs, oil pump gears, rods, crankshaft, bearings, flywheel, the whole lot. It's being built exactly the way it would have left the factory, and it'll be in the factory racing tune. You know, for its period, it'll be a good performance car. You know, it'll be.
Paul lets the clients draw the line. If their desire is for a vehicle that is exactly as it would have been when it rolled from the factory, then that's what they get, using parts that come from the period of its manufacture. For others, the philosophy is use and refurbish what can be salvaged, then manufacture, to the original specifications, the bits that are no longer available. But does this ruin the concept of the classic?
So it doesn't really change the character of the car at all. It just makes it more reliable and easier for the owners to maintain and adds the pleasure, no frustration to SU fuel pumps and crook batteries and things like that. So it'll sound the same, it'll go the same, but we're really protecting the owner's investment so that he's got something that's bulletproof, reliable, and you know, it's not going to let him down. And also he can use it the way the car was intended to be used, without, you know, worrying about 60 or 70-year-old components failing.